Lave Cross was born Vratislav Kriz on May 12, 1866 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. His father Joseph and mother Mary emigrated from Bohemia, located in present-day Czech Republic. Joseph was a salesman and a hired hand, while Mary was kept busy as a homemaker with 4 children to look after. Lave had 3 brothers, Joseph, Amos, and Frank, who also had brief stints in the major leagues. Lave's family moved to Cleveland when he was young. Lafayette Napoleon Cross was the moniker that Lave chose just prior to the start of his baseball career. In 1885, Lave's semi-pro career began in Sandusky, Ohio. In 1886, he made his professional debut with Altoona, where his play behind the plate garnered major league attention. While his brother Amos was with Louisville, Lave decided to sign with the team in order to look after his brother, who would die of consumption in July of 1888. In 1887, Cross hit .266 with an OPS plus of 80. Lave's fielding percentage was much higher than the league average, and he was commended for his professional handling of difficult pitchers. He continued his success with Louisville in 1888, but was often injured and played in just 100 games, 81 as catcher, over the 1887 and 1888 seasons. Cross was purchased by Louisville's American Association adversaries, the Philadelphia Athletics, for $2,500. After the deal was signed, the then 22-year-old Cross married a local Louisville teenager named Emma Heiberger. Cross was commended again in 1889 for his handling of Philadelphia star pitcher Gus Wehing, despite his hard-throwing and erratic style of pitching. Cross would sign a contract with the Brotherhood of Professional Baseball Players and played for the Philadelphia Quakers in 1890. Through 1889 and 1890, Cross had limited playing time due to injuries and competition at the catching position. However, Cross was still getting praise from the press. A Philadelphia reporter exclaimed, "The way little Lave Cross recovers himself after snatching a wild pitch beats all the cat-like agility ever seen in these parts. He is the lightest man on his feet that has ever stood behind the plate. He backs up first base and nearly climbs up on the grandstand after foul flies." Another sports writer, a decade later, noted that the base runner watches the direction in which the catcher points his left foot on the throw, and that the throw almost invariably goes where that foot points. So Cross, when there were double steal attempts with runners on first and third, would step with his left foot toward third base to drive the runner back to that bag while actually throwing to second to catch the runner going down. Cross went back to the American Association's Philadelphia Athletics after the folding of the Players League, and along with Jocko Milligan, split catching time as the team's premier offensive weapons. In 1891, Cross would see more playing time in the outfield and would also see his first stint as a third baseman. In 1891, he hit .301 with an OPS of 133, all while splitting time at catcher, 43 games, outfielder, 43 games, and third base, 24 games. Cross signed with the Phillies of the National League after the American Association folded following the 1891 season. This Phillies team was extremely talented offensively, with an outfield consisting of future Hall of Famers Ed Delahanty, Sam Thompson, and Billy Hamilton. Jack Clements was behind the plate, leaving Lave yet again in a tough position for playing time. Harry Wright, manager of the Phillies, wanted to keep Cross in the lineup at all costs and made him the premier utility player on Philadelphia's roster. During the 1892 season, Cross would appear in 140 games, 65 at third base, 39 at catcher, 25 in the outfield, 14 at second base, and 5 at shortstop. During the 1893 season, Cross played in 96 games with 40 at catcher, 30 at third base, 10 in the outfield, 10 at shortstop, and 6 at first base. Offensively, he returned to league averages, but defensively, he shined. Lave's fielding percentages in 1892 were higher than that of league leaders, with .969 at catcher and .921 at third base. His marks of .974 at catcher and .922 at third base were almost good for tops in the league again. However, Billy Nash of Boston earned .923 at third base. The Phillies placed fourth in 1892 and 1893, despite having some of the best offensive players in the league. Ownership replaced manager Harry Wright prior to the 1894 season with Arthur Irwin. Pitchers were moved back to 60 feet 6 inches in 1894, and the pitching box was replaced with a rubber slab. With this change, the Phillies' offensive prowess increased, and they scored almost 9 runs per game. Cross was made Philadelphia's regular third baseman by Irwin, and was placed 5th in the batting order behind Delahanty and Thompson. That year would be the best offensive season of Cross's career, with 210 hits, 128 runs, 132 RBI, a slash line of 387, 424, and 526, and he would rank 6th on the team with an OPS plus of 132, which would only trail his 3 Hall of Fame outfielder teammates, a reserve outfielder Tuck Turner, and the hard-hitting Jack Clemens. Despite this offensive onslaught, Philadelphia finished in 4th place yet again. Cross weighed 155 pounds and was 5 feet 8 inches tall. He was called short and stoutly built. His bow legs were his most noticeable physical characteristic, and he was referred to as the human parentheses by sports writer Charles Dryden. Lave raced homing pigeons in his spare time and homed many other animals, including but not limited to dogs and chickens, at the abandoned Four Paw Park in Philadelphia. Cross did not drink and was labeled as one of the best behaved players in the league. Lave was well-mannered, which contrasted with his fellow players in those days. He was given the moniker Kid, as Phillies fans adored Cross and his infectious style of play. In playing third base, Lave was known for using his catcher's mitt to play the position, something Frank Connaughton of Boston and Joe Sugden of Pittsburgh did as well, but Lave was more widely known for this choice. In February 1895, National League owners decided to let first basemen use catcher's mitts, but any other position was limited to a glove no heavier than 10 ounces and no larger than 14 inches around the palm of their hand. Cross had no problem finding a mitt that met these regulations and continued his success at the position. Lave's defensive prowess continued in 1894 with a .916 fielding percentage at third base, with only Billy Nash besting that number yet again. However, as a hitter, his numbers fell with an OPS plus of 76. In 1895, he achieved a fielding percentage of .940, which would easily top all third basemen that season. Despite his defensive numbers, the Phillies had only improved to third place. A new manager, in Billy Nash, which involved the trade of future Hall of Fame outfielder Billy Hamilton, proved challenging for Cross. Nash returned Cross to his role as a utility player in 1896, and Lave played only 37 games at shortstop, 6 at second base, 2 in the outfield, and 1 at catcher, while recording 61 games at third base. Defensively, he was stellar, but his offense dipped yet again, with an OPS plus of 74. The press began to turn on him, and the Philadelphia Times wrote, "We think Cross a good man, but not for Philadelphia." There were writers who urged Nash to let Cross be the full-time third baseman and questioned his use of the star. Nash would be replaced as manager in 1897 by George Stallings. Cross and Stallings did not get along. It was reported that one day, Lave Cross chased Stallings down Lehigh Avenue with a brick. Stallings tried to trade Cross that spring and left Lave at home during a lengthy road trip, causing him to ask for his release. Cross did not get his release, and on August 10th, in a game against Washington, Senators third baseman Zeke Wrigley was knocked out along with Cross as Stallings pushed Wrigley into a violent collision with Cross, who was on the base paths. The Phillies finally traded Cross, Clements, Tommy Dowd, and Jack Taylor to the St. Louis Browns in November of 1897 for Monty Cross, Red Donahue, and Klondike Douglas. Philadelphia was content to see the hard-working but utterly useless Lave Cross leave the team. The Browns, under the ownership of Chris Von der Ahe, were cellar dwellers. The team was in a state of effervescent mutiny multiple times during the 1898 season when the paychecks would arrive late. On a positive note, Cross was given a full-time position at third base and would finish the season as the Browns' most valuable player. Lave found his bat again in 1898, posting an OPS plus of 114, while leading all third basemen in fielding percentage with .945. The Browns concluded the 1889 season at 39 wins and 111 losses, and Lave was in the crosshairs of trade rumors. The Browns owners Frank and Stanley Robeson had just purchased the Browns and rebranded them as the Perfectos, and it was apparent that they were only interested in profits. Cross would become the player-manager for Cleveland after a bitter dispute over salary demands with the Perfectos' new manager, Patsy Tebow. Cleveland began its season after an abbreviated spring training and began to lose immediately. Cleveland went 8-30 under Cross before he was traded back to St. Louis for pitcher Creed Bates and catcher Ossie Schreckengost. Cleveland would go 12-104 in the remainder of the season. St. Louis put Lave at third base and moved young third baseman Bobby Wallace to shortstop. Cross would have an average season at the plate with an OPS plus of 95, but would continue with his solid defensive work at the hot corner, setting a major league record with a .959 fielding percentage, which stood until 1907 when Harry Steinfeld of the Cubs had a .967 mark. In 1900, John Muggsy McGraw was sold to the Perfectos. After his performance in his St. Louis return, Cross was hailed as the idol of the St. Louis fans. As McGraw hesitated to join the team, the fans made it clear who they wanted to play third when Cross came to bat in an exhibition game, chanting, "We don't want Muggsy." Despite the fans' love of Cross, when an offer from Brooklyn manager Ned Hanlon arrived for Cross, St. Louis took the money, and Cross signed with the Superbas for 2 years. Weeks after the trade, the St. Louis press began to assault Cross for not blocking the bag the way McGraw did, and relying too much on shortstop Wallace to chase down fly balls on his side of the infield. There was some positive press as well, with one St. Louis observer stating that Lave is a wonder at fielding hard hits, but he is rather slow when he is called upon to take care of the bunts and the slow-bouncing grounders. These criticisms were fewer and more far between than the praise that Cross received. A reporter from New York stated that Cross was as fast as lightning on those slow, tantalizing hits, which the locals generally beat out. Lave was also praised for his remarkable quickness. However, Hall of Famer Jimmy Collins was always considered better than Cross in this era. Their career paths were very similar in that they both became full-time third basemen in their mid-20s in the mid-1890s. Having each played approximately 1,700 games at third base, Collins bested Cross in range per 9 innings with 3.67 compared to Cross's 3.64, and Collins had a superior bat, achieving a lifetime OPS of 113 compared to Cross's 100. Cross would prove his worth yet again and help Brooklyn win the pennant in 1900. Cross would sign with the American League's Philadelphia Athletics, captained by former Philly and Hall of Famer Nap Lajoie, accepting an offer of $3,000 salary from Connie Mack in 1901. Philadelphia would have a rough start to the 1901 season, and players would threaten to quit unless Connie Mack added more weapons to the team. The team performed well over the stretch run, going 74-62. Although often injured, Cross would have a good season at the plate with an OPS plus of 122 and continued his fine defensive efforts with a .919 fielding percentage. Lajoie would be prevented from playing in-state with Philadelphia in 1902, and he ended up signing with Cleveland. Cross was appointed the team's new captain by Connie Mack. Lave's responsibilities included inspecting the grounds before games, warming up pitchers, and assisting with the defensive strategies. Cross ran the team while Mack would recruit new players. Under Lave's captaincy, the Athletics won their first pennant in 1902. Cross would bat cleanup that season and batted .342 with an OPS plus of 122, and he did so by amassing 108 RBIs while hitting 0 home runs. Cross was a hit-and-run machine and kept pace on the base paths with 25 steals, diving headfirst into each bag. While competitive, Philadelphia missed out on the pennant in 1903 and 1904, but Cross didn't miss a single game in either season and batted .292 with an OPS plus of 94 in 1903 and a .290 average with an OPS plus of 113 in 1904. While his fielding percentage was stellar, .950 in 1903 and .936 in 1904, age began to catch up with him. Cross started the 1905 season hitting just .229 through 40 games as he fought off injuries. Cross recovered and went 19 for 55, a .345 average, leading Philadelphia to win 12 of 15 games to move into first place. Philadelphia would capture its second pennant in 1905 with Cross batting .266 with an OPS plus of 98, while seeing his fielding percentage dip to .928. Philadelphia would go on to lose the World Series to Christy Mathewson's New York Giants, and Lave would have a poor performance at the plate while committing a critical error in Game 4. By this time, Cross was 39 years old. His responsibilities as captain took their toll in his relationships with his teammates and with ownership. Connie Mack respected Cross and allowed him his release for Lave to sign with the Washington Senators. Cross started the 1906 season with a .333 average through 21 games, but this didn't help the team as they continued to lose and finished in 7th place for the second straight season. Cross ended the season batting .263 with an OPS plus of 100 and led the American League in fielding percentage at third base with .952. Early in the 1907 season, and not thoroughly in accord with the policies of new manager Joe Cantillon, Cross was hitting only .199 with an OPS plus of 63. Lave was released by the Senators and signed a 2-year deal with the New Orleans Pelicans of the Southern Association. The stint in New Orleans proved short as he was released early in 1908. Cross then returned to Pennsylvania to become Shamokin's player manager. Next, he served Charlotte in the same capacity. In 1912, in his 27th professional season at age 46, he managed the New England League's Haverhill Hustlers while playing 126 games at third. A couple years later, he coached Ohio Wesleyan's baseball team before finally retiring from the game. Cross and Emma would have no children and divorced in 1910. Lave then married Mona Long in 1911, sharing a daughter, Laura. They landed in Toledo, Ohio after Cross had retired from baseball. Lave was employed at the Willys Overland Automobile Factory, and while walking to work on September 6, 1927, suffered a fatal heart attack. Cross's final resting place is in Toledo's Woodlawn Cemetery. Lave Cross had a long, colorful, and highly successful baseball career, amassing 2,651 hits, 411 doubles, 136 triples, 1,378 RBI, and a slash line of .292, .329, .383, and a career fielding percentage of .938 at third base. One of the best defensive players of his era, while putting up impressive career offensive totals, Lave was loved by his fans and is more than deserving of a spot in Cooperstown.